Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. Today I'm coming to you from the beautiful Caribbean island of St. Vincent, which I arrived at yesterday. So come join me as I check out this place. St. Vincent definitely doesn't get as much attention as other Caribbean islands. And in fact, it's the main island of the independent nation of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Now, the Grenadines are a bunch of smaller islands that are known as the Grenadines. Over there, way in the distance, actually not that far in the distance, you can see the nearest Grenadine. And then here is a decommissioned airport that doesn't seem to be in use anymore. Right now I'm walking into the capital city of Kingstown, which is not to be confused with Kingston, Jamaica. These are two completely different cities, and Kingstown is way smaller. When I flew into St. Vincent yesterday, I didn't have to take any money out of the ATM. And that's because these Eastern Caribbean islands kind of function like the European Union does, because they all have a shared currency called the Eastern Caribbean dollar. And so I still had some of that left over from St. Lucia. I'm gonna admit something pretty bad. I just ate some Subway here, and when I was there, I saw the second longest line I've ever seen for Subway. I'm not telling you where the first longest was. There's the flag for St. Vincent. There's a quick look at the Central Market in town. I'm cutting through the cemetery to get to the outskirts of town. I want to take a bus to the west side of the island to check out some stuff there. And there's pretty much only one road that matters on this whole island, so it should be easy enough to find a bus going where I want to go. These smaller Caribbean islands don't really have buses, so to speak. They more have these vans that come by every 5 minutes to pick you up, which is nice. I like the frequency with it, but the problem is that oftentimes they're usually full by the time that they reach you, so you have to wait around for a while for one that's not full. Well, I've made it to Walilabu Bay, and if this looks familiar, it should. It's the place where they filmed Pirates of the Caribbean. I was fully expecting the Pirates of the Caribbean filming location to be a huge tourist trap, but it wasn't. There was nothing there aside from a bar. I spent a little while in it. There was hold on a second. There's an old guy at the bar who was the only other person there, and he was this guy who had served in the US military, even though he was born in St. Vincent. And now he's living off the grid and putting up solar panels. God bless him. Walking over now to a heritage park where supposedly some more scenes of Pirates of the Caribbean were shot. And I'll admit, I haven't really seen anything that Johnny Depp's been in. I haven't seen those pirate movies. I haven't seen that divorce. None of it. St. Vincent is known to have a few ancient petroglyphs around the island, and here is one of them. The sign says that it looks like a monkey, but I think it looks a little like Rick Sanchez. I expected this park to be a bit bigger than this, but there doesn't seem to be much here. Luckily, there is some hiking nearby. There are about 197 countries in the world, depending on who you ask. And I made it a goal from early on to try to remember them all. And St. Vincent and the Grenadines were one that I just couldn't remember for a while. When I would take those tests on like Sporkle or whatever to name all the countries, I would get to about like 190. And then I'd be like, oh yeah, that one country in the Caribbean. I completely forgot about it. Countries that I had the hardest time remembering were those like random ones in the middle of the Pacific. Like, who the fuck remembers Palau? Well, I thought there was a trail to walk around here, but it just doesn't seem to exist. So I'm happy walking around this town instead. Do those tiny islands over there count as Grenadines? I have to know. For this island, I was originally planning to maybe walk around the whole thing. It would take probably 2 days to do so. But that is a dumb idea because it is a very hilly island and it is hot. But I'm happy to just walk random stretches like I'm doing. This is what those vans look like that you use to ride around the island. I took a van back into Kingstown, and now I'm in the Western Hemisphere's oldest botanical garden. The guy who drove me here was drinking while driving. As you can see through the cage, there is a parrot. This little guy is the St. Vincent parrot. And they keep a few around here just in case anything happens to the natural population. There's that parrot again, except this time he's on a sign. I forgot to mention this earlier, but back when I was at that beach, I was playing with this really cute dog that had fleas. I should probably get tested. That house has a whole bunch of chickens on the same fence. I figured I couldn't make it all the way to St. Vincent and the Grenadines without checking out at least one of the Grenadines. And so that's my plan for today. I'm gonna take a bus into town and then a ferry over to the island of Beauquois. I made it to the boat just in time. I kind of thought I slept in too long to get the earliest boat, but that is not the case. Arrived at this island, and my first order of business is to eat pancakes. Check it out, they got Pizza Hut. My first impression of Beauquois is that it seems much more set up for tourism than St. Vincent does. St. Vincent doesn't really have anything like this. This island is small. It's maybe a couple miles across. And because of that, I think I can explore pretty much the whole thing before the last ferry out of here. This island is surprisingly pleasant to walk around. Obviously, you don't have much traffic here. Plus, you got a lot of shade, and these paths don't seem to be very hilly. What more can you ask for? St. Vincent and the Grenadines has a whole bunch of Grenadines, and Beauquois is the only one that is easily accessible by ferry from the mainland, as far as I know. But there is another Grenadine that's a bit further south that is also quite popular with tourists. And I think that one actually has its own national or international airport. Over there in the distance, I can see a couple other Grenadines. I've made it to the other side of the island at a place called Crescent Beach. See that it has a whole bunch of algae. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's wild to be on this island out in the middle of nowhere. Then you see a Remax for sale sign. I gotta watch soccer from this high up. This bus shelter that I'm hanging out in is dedicated in memory of some guy who died in March of 2020. I wish they would tell us if he died of COVID or not. These island towns really are just named whatever. Since I got to town, this dog's been leading me around. He's been a very good host. That over there makes me think that I should run for shelter. Somehow that storm dissipated without hardly any rain. So that means it's time now to return to the other side of the island to get back onto the last ferry of the day. I'm sure this gate is here for a reason. You guys having a good day? Good. One last thing I wanted to check out on this island. This is Fort Hamilton. It's a fort that was built in the 1700s to defend this island from the dastardly French. As you can see, this fort overlooks the bay, and it has a cat. I was walking into town last night. I saw a dog. It was on its side, and its limbs were sticking up. And I realized, oh, that's a dead dog. And there were a whole bunch of people around it, and nobody seemed to give a shit. Circle of life, I guess. Most of these Caribbean islands have a single highway that encircles the whole island. And what makes St. Vincent different is that their highway doesn't. It only makes like a U shape, because on the very northern end of the island, there's a huge volcano that makes it hard to build a road around it. Wasn't really sure what I wanted to do today, so I noticed that there was a lookout point only a couple miles from where I was, and I've been hiking there ever since. And I've got to say, chalk one up to randomly doing something. This is awesome. I'm nearly at the top of this hill, which is good because I'm nearly out of water. Really hoping that they have some water at the top. Well, I've made it to the top. So did I climb a mountain or a hill? Debate in the comments. You can see a huge volcano over there. That one's called La Soufrière. And a few years ago, I think in 2021, it erupted. So it's very much active. I just realized that in my time in the Caribbean, I don't think I've seen a single semi-truck. And I think that's for two reasons. I think because of the roads. These aren't like the best roads for semi-trucks to drive on. It's better to drive with, vans or pickup trucks. And then on top of that, you're never too far from a port here. Last night I was talking with some guy, and he was briefly talking about the local politics here. He said that the previous administration of St. Vincent sucked, and that the new one is good, and that things are getting better here. And that's good to hear. I like to hear that. Although it did make me think, what if the guy I'm talking to is an unreliable narrator? For all I know, he could be a fascist, and he likes that the new administration is rounding people up. I doubt it, though. He seemed like a good guy. Well, that's about it for my time in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I have a flight out of here this evening, but I thought this was a great place. This is a beautiful country. The people here are very warm and friendly and helping, except for the homeless guy who was harassing me this afternoon. I don't know if he wanted money or if he wanted to have his way with me. Either way, fuck that guy. All right, see ya.